Hi guys, and welcome to our latest game. It's really great to see the feedback and the comments on our ECW game we put up a couple of weeks ago. I filmed the videos a week or two in advance, so it takes there'll be a bit of a time delay between videos posting and me commenting on them. But no, it was really encouraging to see the number of people who watched that video. I think it's been my most popular video of all time. So showing there's some appeal for periods just wider than Napoleonic. So as we said in our last video, we'll keep up the rhythm of trying to do 2 or 3 games of Napoleonic and then a game from one of our other periods we collect. So welcome to today's game. This is going to be the Battle of Bussaco in the Peninsula in 1810. And firstly, I just want to pay due credit to the Loughton Strike Force game, pictures of which you can find on the web, which is just amazing, the most outstanding scenery. Couldn't hope to match anything like that on my table, but anyway, we'll give this one a go today. The terrain you see on the table in front of you, although we've created an impressive ridgeline height-wise, the cigar got box battle maps tend to suppress the height differentials, so you don't see so much of the height difference coming out on the screen. But there will be about 24 inches worth, so at normal movement, 2 to 3 turns worth of approach marching for the French up the steep sides of the ridge at Bussaco, and that will give the defending troops of the Portuguese and British a chance to cause some serious damage to the attacking French divisions. We've got about 20 French battalions attacking this small Allied formation on the ridgeline. Apologies, we've got some hoovering going on in the background to show you the defending forces who've deployed first. So we've got a small Portuguese brigade here on the left of line troops. Then we've got 3 British battalions. These are all very high quality battalions. They're actually all rated as elite in the scenario instructions. I'm using the old General de Brigade scenarios for this particular game. Then we have a British foot artillery battery and another couple of battalions of Portuguese. We do have a small amount of British reinforcements available. The French will be approaching from the bottom of the slope, and they choose to capture or bypass Bussaco as a village there at towards the bottom of the hill. And we'll see how they do. Their objective is to throw the British off the ridge. This was a 12 to 13 kilometre ridge, so the British and Allied forces were fairly spread out defending the ridgeline. And this is Reyniers' assault on this part of the ridgeline, which caught the British somewhat unprepared with only light screening forces here. There is a second Bussaco scenario, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct, which will play after this one. So there'll be two scenarios to make up a reflection of the full action. Anyway, we'll go on with the French assault against this part of the ridgeline. Alright, Commander Charlie has arrived at the table to issue his orders for his defending British and Portuguese forces. What are your thoughts for the game today, Charlie?
So I might pull back my British troops behind the hill, so then I can hopefully get my Portuguese to do volleys outside. When the French get quite close up to the village, I can bring them back up and they'll have no casualties from the artillery.
Cool.
So I want to keep these guys alive because they're all elite, the British right now. So
yeah, there isn't any French artillery on the table yet, so they're all right at the moment. But I'll look to execute that order.
Yeah, move them back, and then when the French get to about here,
move them back up onto the ridgeline.
Put them back up.
All right. Cool. We'll get you back once the game's going a bit further and you can give us some more orders. All right. Cheers then, Charlie. See you soon.
Bye.
Okay, so unfortunately for the Allies, we didn't do very well with our ADCs. We rolled 4 ADCs, so we put 3 onto our British brigade, giving us artillery assault with a reroll. And we put a reroll on one of our Portuguese brigades. But unfortunately, both the Portuguese and the British went hesitant. Despite their rerolls. So there'll be no firing at long range this turn from the British and no advancing by their skirmisher screen. For the French, they got activations on 3 of their brigades and they've brought Three of their formations already on the table. They start with about 15 battalions attacking this British line, and they have another brigade in reserve under Ney. The far left-hand side of the French line, we've got an foot artillery battery moving up, supported by 2 battalions. They are actually of reservist grade troops. In the centre, we've got 3 veteran Léger battalions, and on the right, we've got a further French line infantry brigade, 2 battalions of line at full strength, and 2 small battalions. You may see during the course of the game some little glass red beads next to the French infantry battalions. That's to remind me of the veterans, and the yellow beads, if you see them on the French, they remind me of the second rate, so the reservists, as we'll be playing them in this game. Alright, so there'll be no artillery and no firing for either side this turn, so we'll move on with turn 2. Okay, on we go with turn 2, and it's still early morning and a fog has started descending on the valley, so artillery fire for this turn is limited to effective range. So that's going to hinder the defensive fire of the Allies and that French artillery battery as it moves forward. The objective of both sides is basically to occupy the ridge and destroy one another's forces. So for the French and the Allies, breaking 3 enemy brigades is sufficient to be declared a winner. Otherwise, the win goes to the side at the end of turn 12 who's in possession of the ridge. Alright, let's move on with turn 2. So Picton's issued his orders again for this turn, and he's again ordered artillery assault. We took a bit of a risk. We only had 2 ADCs, which we both applied to our artillery battery to give it infantry assault, and fortunately we did activate this brigade. So artillery assault has gone off. One of our Portuguese brigades is also hesitant, but the other one is active. So we'll be rolling for initiative at -1 for the Allies. For the French, I thought I'd just show you this. This was their ADC activation roll. Not quite 6 sixes, but 5 sixes. So they've got plenty of ADCs to allocate. We'll just do those and roll for activation. Okay, so we've allocated our ADCs for the French. We've put infantry assault on our left-hand brigade. We're thinking of having a go at these Portuguese because these are farthest away from the Allied reinforcements, which will be coming from way down that end of the line. So this looks to us, from a French perspective, as the weakest end of the Allied line and the easiest way to go up onto the ridge. Our brigade in the centre is active of our light troops. Our right-hand brigade, unfortunately, has gone hesitant this turn, so we won't be able to move the artillery forward, and the fog will mean that even if we deploy the foot artillery, it will be out of range. But we did get a forwards order on a reinforcing further French brigade, so that'll be coming on the right-hand flank. The French, however, are at -2 for having 2 hesitant brigades, the Allies at -1. So let's roll for initiative. Alright, Allies have got initiative in turn 2. Alright, so we've started movement here, and the new French reinforcements have started advancing on the right-hand flank of the French position. They took their leadership tests for starting to mount the slope on the way up to Bussaco Ridge, which starts from 12 inches in from the table edge, and they all passed their tests, so they continued making normal movement. As we move across, the active light regiment has entered into Bussaco village, and again it passed its test, as did the troops on the far left-hand flank of the French position. So they're all making good time so far, as they just hit the edge of the ridge line. The steepness of this ridge probably will slow some of these attacking troops down. Alright, let's move on to firing. Allies to go first. Let's see if anything is in range, effective range of this artillery battery at the top of the hill. Restricted to 24 inches. So we can just see these battalions emerging out of the fog. We can fire over the buildings in the ridge because the ridge is so high, and they're not in dead ground. The ridge is so steep it prevents any effects of dead ground in the game, as per one of the scenario rules. So this battery is at effective range, and this is an artillery assault, so we'll need some extra combat dice. Alright, let's roll for this battery. The blues are the casualty dice. Alright, so they do pretty well. They roll a 10, and they've got a 6, so that'll be 1 extra casualty on a 10. A battery firing at effective range at 10 causes 3 casualties and a discipline test. and the artillery target is also a column at effective range, so I did get to re-roll one of these casualty dice as well. Alright, so that's not just 3 casualties, that will be 5 casualties and a discipline test against that light battalion. Great start for the British, defending the bridge. Alright, we'll now do the discipline test. For those of you who are interested, the edge of the built-up area is delineated by the fence line, so you can see that the village starts at these 2 buildings on the right and then moves across the edge of that fence line on the left. So that battalion on the right of the village is not in the built-up area. Okay, let's do its discipline test. This will be a test at -1 because it's got 5 casualties. Let's see how they do. Well, we got a cocked dice, a 2, and we'll re-roll this one. And a 2, that's not good, so that's a 3. Right, on a result of a 3, they have to retreat and lose 1d3 casualties. So they lose another 1 casualty and will be pushed back. Right, so at the end of turn 3, we've taken 1 more casualty on the Skirmishers. We did a bit of an exchange of skirmish fire between the Reyniers and the British light companies fighting at the edge of Bussaco village. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I did look it up on a Portuguese pronunciation website last night, but I'm still not sure I got it. Just in case you're interested, I have retreated that unit to the table edge. I haven't removed it from play because we do have a 2nd regiment of Légers from the same brigade advancing onto the table that haven't yet come on. So it would be able to fall up behind those troops, and I'm not playing it as a hard table edge as the French army is all deployed down in the valley. So I will allow that one to come back on once its brigade is not in hesitant status. And we will play it as a hard table edge when all the French troops are on the table. Alright, on we go with turn 3. Okay, so similar deployments of ADCs as we move into turn 3. The British have again deployed 3 of their ADCs to artillery assault on the British infantry brigade in the centre, and that has come off. They had no re-rolls for their Portuguese, so again one of our Portuguese battalions, this time the right-hand one, has gone hesitant, so we'll be rolling for initiative at -1. As indeed will the French, who have got, again, unfortunately, 1 hesitant battalion, which is this one bringing on the artillery battery, so that is unfortunate. But they have got infantry assault now off against their right-hand brigade and far left-hand brigade. And indeed our light brigade in the centre is active, so that retreating battalion will be able to reform, and the 2nd regiment of Légers as part of that brigade will be able to join it as they are also active. Alright, on we go with turn 3 charges, then movement. Alright, so we've completed the French movement and the French battalions are all suffering from the sheer difficulty of clambering up this hill. So pretty much all 3 of the attacking back French battalions on their left flank have gone unformed as they move up the hill, so they'll have to take an extra turn shaking themselves out, getting them ready before they can assault the ridgeline of the Portuguese facing off against them in the village itself. The French Légers have pushed their way in, but moving into a built-up area they automatically go unformed, but their colleagues in the 2nd regiment are now moving up in their support. On the right, our artillery battery, as we know, remains stationary, and then on our far right, our attacking formation here. Also, all 3 battalions went unformed as a result of the steepness of the climb, exposing themselves to fire from the Portuguese. Okay, on we go with the Allied movement. Unfortunately for Picton and the Allies, the British artillery here is now screened by the French troops actually being inside of the built-up area themselves, so they won't be able to fire unless the French choose to emerge from the village there. And the French columns on the right are unfortunately out of its arc of fire and it didn't manoeuvre this turn. The 2 Portuguese battalions are hesitant, but they can volley and they will fire at those skirmish screens of the attacking French force. So we'll fire the left-hand battalion first. Gets a -2 modifier for firing its skirmishers, so that's a 5. Standard volley will be 1 casualty against the skirmisher screen, and then firing again, a 5 goes down to a 3. That'll be a loss of fire discipline and no effect. Okay, for turn 4, again, Allies have gone for artillery assault in the centre, and their left-hand Portuguese brigade has gone hesitant. Fortunately for the French, 3 brigades have gone hesitant. 2 that don't matter so much. They're 2 assaulting brigades which are unformed this turn and will need to reform. Both went hesitant, but they're not going to be looking to advance further forward anyway, so that won't inhibit them too much, and they will form up. In the centre, they've gone active with both of their light brigades, but again, their artillery battery and that brigade bringing it forward, despite having a reroll, has also gone hesitant. So let's roll for initiative. The French are at -3, the Allies at -1. The Allies got 8 down to 7, the French 4 down to 1, so the Allies have initiative, can do charges, then movement first at turn 4. The French, and I might have called him Ney, it's actually Foy, get Foy's brigade on as reserves this turn. They have successfully activated those, so we need to think about where we will bring them on in the French movement segment. Okay, so we've done the turn 4 firing. Exchange of skirmisher fire, some more minor casualties to the Portuguese line by the French skirmisher screens, and some return fire by the Allied skirmishers doing some slight damage against those same skirmishers from the French. Now we will fire this artillery battery into the built-up area. The French are now at the front of the built-up area, which can contain 2 units we've used in this game. So this will be a fire, it will be artillery assault, but it will be -1 because the target is in cover, and half effect because we're firing at the built-up area. So that's pretty good by the French, by the Allies. We get an 11, that takes it down to a 10 because it's a built-up area. We'll just check the distance from the battery to the built-up area itself, so it is at close range. So a 10 at close range is 4 casualties and a discipline test. So we halve that, so that'll be 2 casualties, but still a discipline test against that right-hand battalion of the French in the village. The French have rolled a 10, and they've passed a discipline test in the village. Alright, on we go with turn 5. The Portuguese here again have a go at the French skirmisher screen. Left-hand battalion rolls a 6, -2 is 4, that won't be anything, and then the right-hand battalion, wow, rolls a 12, that'll be a destiny test. We will do that, and we will look at what 12 does against the skirmisher screen. Okay, so the French lose a stand, and we'll now see what the destiny test is. It's an 8, so we recover a casualty, so we offset the effect of that skirmisher fire on this right-hand battalion. Portuguese are feeling resolute as the face of this incoming French attack. Alright, for turn 5, the Allies played their same old tactic of going for artillery assault on their British brigade with a re-roll, but unfortunately we rolled a 2 and a 1, so the British brigade is hesitant and artillery assault has failed. The 2 Portuguese brigades are active, so the French will be, the Allies will be at -1 for their initiative roll. The French went for full ADC deployment against their brigades to try and activate as many as possible and try and get the initiative this turn to get some charges in first, which they have done. So they have no hesitant brigades, so it's a straight roll-off, but the Allies are at -1 on their initiative. Wow, Allies have done it again. They've got an 11 down to a 10, the French got an 8. So the Allies have initiative and get to charge and move first. I don't think any of the Allies will be moving, so we'll get on and move our French forces and see if we've got any charges to declare. So we have these charges first, as the French tend to charge the Portuguese line. Alright, so first we've got to do leadership tests. They've got to roll a 7 or less to pull this off, otherwise the steepness of the slope will prevent them. So the right-hand battalion gets a 7, so it charges. The left-hand battalion, which has got a support, gets an 8. It only goes half the charge distance and halts. So we have 1 charge going in. Okay, so we've completed charges and movements. We'll start with the far right flank. Over here you can see the French first of their attacking brigades has reaching the steepest part of the ridgeline. Its front 2 battalions are advancing to within charge range. The right hand one has gone unformed, but the left hand battalion is still formed and may be able to do a charge next turn. Its supporting brigade has also suffered from starting to climb the hill, and a couple of those battalions have gone unformed this turn. In the centre, the French artillery is finally moving forward, and they have been activated this time, along with their infantry escorts. So we'll see whether they can deploy and start bringing in effective fire down against the Portuguese in the next turn or 2. In the centre, The French remain in the built-up area, and because they have enemy forces within 9 inches of their exit point, they can't come out, so they will have to try and shoot the Allies away. As a result of that, they've stopped being masked by their own skirmishers, who've moved across to their left to put some pressure on the lines over here. And finally, the far left flank of the French, one battalion has charged in. The other attacking battalion failed its charge move and halted at 4.5 inches and is trying to reform itself. And indeed, both the supports also went unformed. So we've got some defensive volleys and supporting fire from these two Portuguese battalions. Doesn't look good with 2 volleys coming in against the French, but we'll see how the defensive fire goes and what the charge reactions are. Okay, so firing the left-hand Portuguese battalion, they will get a combat dice because they're firing at a bomb at 3 inches or less. So they get a 6 and nothing from the combat dice. So the standard volley 6 is 1 casualty, and then the supporting battalion to their right, it's not within 3 inches, so they don't get the combat dice. They also roll a 6, so that's 2 casualties on this French column. Perhaps they will make it in. Okay, so both the French and the Portuguese are deploying their commanders. So this will be a straight roll-off, but with a +1 bonus to the Portuguese because of the casualties they inflicted on the French battalion when in charge. Right, so the Portuguese get a 7, and the French get a 5. Alright, let's see whether... I will just check whether an unformed battalion can give support to the attack, in which case the French may choose to take a reroll. Okay, so the French do get a reroll, but it is at -1 because their support is unformed. A 6, that's pretty good. So the French are on a 10. I think the Portuguese will also go for a reroll then because they have their supporting battalion, and they get an 8. So that's a French victory by 2. Sorry, it's a French victory by 1 because of the casualties caused, but the result is the same. The French is French melee with Elan, and the attackers melee unformed. Just also remembering there is an extra +1 benefit, I think because of the steepness of the slopes, as a special rule here. I think we'll take that from in the melee combat to give them an extra combat dice. Because we've already got the penalties for charging uphill and having to take a test on that. That would seem unfair to have to take 2 tests on the movement. So we'll leave it at that. The French have 1 by 1, so they will charge in, and they are meleeing with Elan. Okay, then now on the far left-hand flank, the 2 Portuguese battalions are going to go and fire against the formed-up French column that is approaching them. Let's see how they do. They roll a 6, should be 1 casualty, and a 4, which will be nothing. Not particularly effective, and the first casualty is always taken against the skirmish screen, so that's simply 1 casualty against those skirmishers. Okay, we'll now fire this British battalion into the village, and we'll get some return fire from the 2 French battalions that are occupying it. Okay, so this will be at -1 and half effect, but they do get a casualty dice because they count as elite. That's nothing, but they do roll a 9, which will go down to an 8. Which is 1 casualty and a discipline test on the French battalion. And they roll a 6, so they go unformed. And finally for the turn we'll do the hand-to-hand combat as the French get stuck in. Extra combat dice for the Allies as they're defending this steep slope. Alright, this will be 6 dice for the French, 5 dice normally +1 for Elan, and the Allies get 5 dice, 5 normally, 4 for being unformed and 1 for the steep slope. Let's roll and see what the effects are. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, so the Allies have 1 by 2 and thrown back the attacking French column, which will have to retreat. And finally, we'll roll a risk determinant test for the French general. That's a 10. Okay, so that'll be a falter test on this attacking French brigade. Okay, I'm slightly worried I've lost track of turns. My turn counter says turn 5. I'm sure that was me just finishing off turn 6. So yeah, apologies if we've missed a turn. We'll play it as if that was turn 6, and we'll now crack on with turn 7, rolling for ADCs for the 2 sides. Okay, so we've rolled for initiative, and all units have gone active on the French side, although we still have our falter test and we've given ourselves a re-roll on the French side. For the Allies, we have got artillery assault off again in the centre. Our right-hand Portuguese brigade is active. Our left-hand brigade, unfortunately, is hesitant. Okay, so let's test for our faltering brigade. So this was as a result of the French losing their commander last turn. And they get a 4 on a line regiment. A 4 is rally. So routed units disperse. I don't think we need routed units. Brigade goes hesitant this turn, and it must step back if they're within 9 inches of the enemy. Okay, so we'll do those adjustments, mark that brigade hesitant, and then we will roll initiative. So both sides are on -1, because both the French and Allies have a hesitant brigade. Alright, 9, 8. The Allies have initiative for this turn. And they do have their reinforcements available if they wish to bring them on. So we completed movement, and we've got British reinforcements coming on, 2 battalions here of KGL, supported by a 9-pounder foot battery. We've moved up our small militia battalion in support of the 2 line battalions to potentially fend off the charge from this brigade here, although it now looks like it's in risk of being outflanked. So the Portuguese shoring up the position here. As we move across, we can see the French have now finally been able to deploy their 8-pounders, and so they'll be opening fire this turn. The British have slightly edged this battalion to the left to provide some additional support against the number of French battalions attacking this flank. In the centre, the French still look a bit log-jammed, stuck inside the village, unable to get out and be exchanging fire with the British here. But they are starting to deploy their other light brigade now through this gap against the Portuguese line here, and this brigade, which was faltering again, reforming itself for this turn. Alright, we'll get on with Allied firing. First we'll fire the Portuguese line battalion against this column of French that's just forming up to assault it next turn. We get a 6, that's 1 casualty on the French. Come back and mark that up. This battalion will open fire against the French skirmish screen, so this will be at -2. They get a better roll, they get an 8. That's 1 casualty against the French skirmish screen. That takes them up to 3. They'll lose 1 skirmisher base. Okay, so now the British skirmish screen will open fire against its French colleagues. 1 casualty against the French. They're already on 2, they've only got 2 bases left, so that will cause 1 more casualty, down to 1 base, therefore the French light skirmish screen disappears. Okay, so now the British will fire against the French in the village. This will be at -1 and then half effect, so that'll be a 7, and nothing on the casualty dice, and half effect will be no casualties, I think. In fact, it is, being a superior volley, it is actually 1 casualty. Then the British skirmisher screen down here will open fire against the French skirmishers. It does nothing. Then we get the Portuguese defensive volleys, so this battalion will open fire against the French skirmisher screen. In fact, the French skirmishers are now squeezed, they're less than 3 inches ahead of their battalion, so they will simply absorb the first casualty from this defensive volley. We're going to fire both battalions at this French battalion here. Let's see what we do. We get a double 1, that's a fatigue casualty, and the second one gets an 8. From a standard volley is 3 casualties, that's 1 on the skirmishers and 2 on the battalion behind it. Finally, the British artillery will open fire. It's going to go against this French light battalion. It's opening its manoeuvres up around the edge of the village. So that'll be a shot with, I think we had artillery assault this turn. So let's roll that. That's an 8, and then 2 dice for artillery assault is 1 more casualty. So on an 8 at effective range, that's 2 casualties, that's 3 casualties on that French battalion, and we will check for bounce through, see if the following battalion is within 6 inches. From the angle on these French lights, that did cause no extra casualties on the bounce through, because the following up battalions were out of the arc of fire of the artillery battery. So we've still got masses of French infantry, as you can see, swirling through the village. They will open fire against their allied targets, and we will possibly get some small volleying from the French columns and their skirmishers in line, and we'll get the opening battery fire next turn. I think we'll not fire the French battery this turn because it's unlimbering. We don't want to cause ourselves a fatigue casualty. So I'll just do the firing from the French columns and their skirmishers now, and then come back at the end of this turn. Okay, so that's the end of turn 7. We'll move on with turn 8. Looks like we'll get some more charges and some more manoeuvring here from the French as they close in for their assaults on the right flank. Still pinned in the village, not a great position for them in the centre, and they may be on the point of their assaults going in on the other flank here as the rest of their battalions deploy. Right, on we go with turn 8. Okay, so just as the French needed to be active, they've had a terrible set of rolls. 4 of their brigades, despite plenty of ADCs, are hesitant. So the assault is pretty much stymied on turn 8. It'll be pretty much a turn of firing. For the Allies, they have 1 hesitant brigade. So this is a test at +3 for the Allies. The French get 11, -3 takes them down to 8. That makes it a draw. The Allies had initiative last turn. They keep it for this turn. Unfortunately for the French, the KGL have been able to charge. No defensive volley as they've hit this battalion in the flank. So KGL are taking the fight to the French as we start the turn on the right flank. Let's see what the charge results are. Okay, so let's see how this flank attack goes. This will be at +3 for the KGL as they are charging a hesitant brigade in the flank. Let's see what we get. French do amazingly well. They have a double 6, that will give them a destiny test. The KGL will re-roll their 1 to a 4. Okay, so the KGL flank attack will have failed. Okay, so we'll now start with the Allied firing. We'll have an inferior volley against this left-hand Portuguese brigade because it formed up during the turn. It does a 7 for an inferior volley, is 2 casualties against the French. The 2nd battalion will fire. Again, this one will be through a skirmish screen. This one goes together. It rolls a 5, that's a standard volley. That'll be 1 casualty, which will be inflicted on the skirmish screen. Skirmish screen survives. Then we have the Allied skirmishers here. They're going to have a go against the French guns. They cause 1 casualty against the French guns. Over here we will fire a volley from the British against the buildings, against the built-up area. That'll be a 6, -1 is a 5 for a superior volley, is 1 casualty, but it's halved, so it's nothing, and they do get a combat dice, which gets nothing. We will then also fire, we have artillery assault, we will again go at the same target, so this will be at effective range. It's pretty good, that's a 9, battery at effective range, is 2 casualties and a discipline test, and it gets 2 combat dice. So that's 4 casualties and a discipline test against this battalion here, the target of the French firing. So they're now up to 7 casualties, having been fired on twice by the battery. Let's see what the discipline test is. Wow, that's a -1. That will be a retreat. That's not great for them. We'll just move them. Unfortunately for the French, there wasn't enough space for their retreat to go through the gap between those 2 supporting battalions, so it's disordered, unformed one of the supporting battalions as well. So that brigade has again been slowed down. Down here we'll have again the Portuguese against the skirmish screen. That'll be nothing, and then the Portuguese against the battalion that's waiting to assault them. We get a 6 for a standard volley. I think that's 1, possibly 2 casualties. Okay, so time's ticking away for the French. It's now turn 9, so 4 more turns for them to execute their capture of the ridge. This steep slope really is grinding the French assault to a halt, but really good news on their right flank. They have at least pushed the KGL back for a turn and have an opportunity to redeploy a bit there to give themselves a reasonable defence and continue the assault. Okay, so both the Allies and the French have a hesitant brigade. The French, the conscripts and their artillery battery in the centre, but it should still be able to fire, is hesitant. And for the Allies, the Portuguese battalion on the left flank. So, French get initiative, they get a 7. Right, French turn to see if they're going to declare any charges. Okay, so the French have 3 charges going in this turn. We've got 2 charges going in against the 2 Portuguese battalions. No supports, unfortunately, for the French because that is a separate brigade. And we have wheeled 1 battalion off to the right, which unfortunately went unformed as it moved over the difficult ground to face off against the KGL threat. We have unmasked our artillery battery. They will be opening fire this turn and these two battalions went hesitant. I think I will reform them. I'll move one of those battalions into line, so I will do that in a second. We continue to volley out from the village owned by the French, and then we have got a supported assault here, as this battalion has also charged the Portuguese line. Right, we'll do the defensive fire and the charge results now. Okay, first we'll do a defensive volley from the Portuguese battalion. Not great, it loses fire discipline, doesn't cause any casualties. Its supporting battalion will open fire against that supporting French battalion. It also does nothing. Not great, and no casualties inflicted on the French charge. Okay, so this will be a straight roll off, but the French will have 2 supports, the Allies only 1. Alright, French do well, they get a 10. The Allies will re-roll their 1, they get a 5. I think the Allies will, well, they have no option, they have to stick with that, and the French will not go for a re-roll. So the French win by 5. And apologies, I do remember I did roll a double 6 in a destiny test. I don't think I applied that, but I'm afraid it's too far back. I can't remember which unit that was on, so we'll play without that. Anyway, down here we've got ourselves on the ridge. It's not a falter test against the Portuguese brigade because it was only a retreat result, but they're not looking in good position. They are now flanked, and the French have certainly gained the ridge line. Okay, so we'll start on the left flank with the 1st Portuguese battalion. It's taken 4 casualties, so its defensive volley will be at -1. Ah, good roll. 11 rather. That goes down to 10, but they are firing at a French volley, a French column, but they're not fresh, I don't think. I think I need to be fresh. Yes, I need to have suffered less than 4 casualties, so it will just be a straight roll. A standard volley at 10 is 4 casualties and a discipline test on the French. The French have already taken 1 casualty, so we'll increase that up to 5. Okay, and they have to take their discipline test. They roll a 9, -1 is 8. They are fine, so they continue with their charge. Alright, let's do the charge result for that battalion before I forget how many casualties we've caused this time. Okay, so we've made the decision. We're going to commit our commander to the right-hand battalion, and I'll re-roll against the left-hand battalion. The French have committed their commander against this battalion. Both have taken 4 casualties, but we did cause 4 casualties in the charge this turn, so that will have quite a big impact. Casualties in charge, 3 or more is -2, so this will be -2 on the French. Right, so the French get 2, Allies get 4, so the Allies win by 2, so it's a -2 result. So the column halts and does a ragged volley against the Portuguese, which does indeed cause a casualty. Alright, we'll move on to the defensive fire by this battalion. Okay, opening fire with the right-hand battalion. We get an 8. Standard volley is 3 casualties. And we've only suffered 1 casualty so far, so we do get a fire dice. That's another one, so that is 4 casualties on that attacking French battalion again. Okay, so the Allies will be at +2 in this combat, as they've got their commander committed, and the French have got a -1 for the number of casualties they've suffered. French don't get a re-roll, nor do the Allies, because it was committed to the other assault. Alright, the Allies get a 12, so that will be a destiny test. We'll remember to do it this time. And they've won by 5, 6, 7. So that will be a attack or retreat result, and they take 1d3 casualties. So the French take another 2 casualties and retreat. Right, so first we'll take... no, we won't have to take a retreat to general test, because the general was committed to the other battalion. It was the Allied general that was in the combat. Let's take the destiny test to see what we get. We get an 8. I believe that means that the Portuguese will recover 1 casualty. Okay, so it's time for the French artillery to open fire for the first time in this game. The fog has cleared sufficiently for them to see the top of the ridgeline, and they're opening fire against the Allies on the top of the ridge. Okay, so this will be a shot at effective range. They roll a 7. There's 1 casualty against the Allies. Alright, and similarly we will open fire with the British artillery battery against the French in the town, firing at the right-hand battalion. Let's see what we get. Wow, I'm doing well on my double 6s. We get a destiny test. and we get battery at close range is 5 casualties. That's halved, so that's 2. Where it goes down to 4 rather, because you reduce it by 1. But that's still 4 casualties. Halved is 2, and a destiny test on that battalion in the village. Sorry, I keep getting my destiny and my discipline test modelled up, so that's a discipline test. For the battalion in the village, it remains unformed, otherwise no effect. And then the destiny test is a 4, which is recover 1 casualty. The artillery have suffered no casualties, so they remain fine. That's it for turn 8. So the French are finally making some progress on the right flank here, but still looking like they're really struggling on the left. Okay, on we go with turn 9. Sorry, on we go with turn 10, 3 turns to go. Okay, so for a change, bit of a view from the French side of the table. We've got the KGL formed up on the hillside there, but fortunately for the French they've gone hesitant this turn, so clearly don't like the repulse they felt last turn. The right-hand French brigade is active again, but has 2 battalions unformed, so won't be doing a great deal this turn. The second reinforcing brigade is also active and actually managed to get infantry assault off, so it can join its weight to the assault of the right-hand end of the ridge. In the centre, the French battalion in the village is hesitant, otherwise everything else is active. For the Allies, unfortunately, the KGL, as I mentioned, are hesitant, and the right-hand Portuguese brigade is hesitant. So it'll be a -2 test to the British, -1 to the French. We'll roll for initiative. Okay, rolling in turn 9. Okay, despite the adjustments, the Allies do have initiative this turn. They get to charge and move first. Okay, so we're still trying to break the Portuguese, so you can see the French here launching another assault. This will be with closed columns, I think. I'll need to check the distances in the deployment, but launching another assault against the Portuguese here, while their second battalion is formed into line to start a musketry duel. Over to the right, the rest of the brigade is starting to work out how to shore up its right flank against the potential threat from the KGL, who are still hesitant. In the centre, the artillery seems to be comfortable where it is, and the conscripts, which the Allies I guess don't know are conscripts, content maintaining their defensive formation on the flank of the village. The battalions in the village continue to exchange fire with the British, pinning them in place. The British artillery battery has started to pin round, and fortunately for the Allies, the French column supporting the attack that's already gained the ridge wasn't able to stay in formation up that steep slope, broke up just before it reached the Portuguese line. So no attack this turn, but there will be some firing. Alright, let's get on with firing in turn 9. Apologies, I realised I hadn't done the defensive volley and the charge result here. Let's do the defensive volley by the Portuguese. It's an attacking French column. Wow, another good defensive volley. They're doing well on this flank, an 11. That causes a discipline test in that French battalion. They're all an 8. They are all right, but that'll be a tough charge home. Alright, let's do for that. Roll for that. Okay, so the French will get -4 for 3 casualties and 4 cumulative casualties. So they roll an 11 -4 is 7. So they have actually won. The Allies will take a re-roll from their supporting battalion. They get a 6. And they will take a re-roll from their flanking battalion. 7. So that is 7 against 7. That will result in the attacker grinding to a halt and doing a volley, which causes no casualties against the Portuguese. So in turn 11, good news for both sides. Every unit is active. The French have initiative. It was a draw, but they had initiative last turn, so they hold it this turn. So what are they going to do? The Allies also managed to get artillery assault off against this battery trying to shore up this right flank here. Okay, charges first for the French. I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch on this flank. This is it for the French, really going for it here. Their formation in line is charging its Portuguese opposite number, having exchanged volleys with them last turn. This column is charging again with support. A third column is charging in against these British troops I don't think sufficiently softened up, but you never know, they might be lucky. And on the other flank, don't think there's enough time for the Allies to for the French to make enough progress. They almost certainly will succeed in wiping out this Portuguese brigade and seizing this part of the ridge, but they're not going to get the whole position. Right, on we go with defensive fire, then charge resolution in turn. Okay, defensive volley for the Portuguese against the attacking line. This will be at -1. They roll a 6. That becomes a 5 for a standard volley. Is just 1 casualty against that attacking French battalion. Alright, let's do the charge results. The French might have a chance. Okay, so this will be a straight roll off. The French are throwing their commander in, that gives them a +1, but they're -2 for casualties. The Portuguese are -1 for casualties, but have no commander. The Portuguese do have a reroll, so they've got a chance. Wow, that was nearly a 10 versus a 5. Okay, let's take the Portuguese reroll. A 7 versus a 6. They will stand, and I'm sure that will be a ragged volley from the French. Okay, yeah, so that caused 2 casualties against the Portuguese, but not enough to break them, although they're starting to waver, that left-hand battalion. Let's do the charge on this flank. So first, defensive volley from this Portuguese battalion. No casualties yet. It does a 6 for its defensive volley. Standard volley 6 is again only 1 casualty on the French. That takes them up to 6 casualties. The French will get a reroll, but the Portuguese won't. The Portuguese have their commander attached. So this is +2 for the Portuguese, but the French have a reroll. Alright, so that's 8 against 7, and we will use the French reroll. Alright, that's quite good. That's a 9 against an 8. +1. I'm not sure that's quite enough. Just having a look. +1. Okay, attacker melees with a land. Portuguese are unformed. It'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. And finally, the defensive volley from the British here against this attacking French column. Wow, that's not great. That's only a 5 for a superior volley from the British. They will get an extra combat dice and another one for being elite. So that is 1 extra casualty. A superior volley is 5, so that's 2 casualties against the French. Alright, now rolling up the combat. This will be +2 for the British, because the French are on 4 casualties now, and we caused 2 of those in the charge. Yeah, that'll be great. They'll be driven off, and they will have to retreat. The British have rolled an 11, and the French only 3, so they're off. Okay, so that's charges done. Now we'll do normal movement. No, sorry, yeah, I think I've done all the normal movement because the Allies aren't going to move, and I did move all the French units as well as doing the charges. So it's now firing, French firing first. Okay, we'll just do on camera the French artillery fire against the British column on the hill. This is at effective range. Pretty good result. We rolled an 11. At effective range, that's 3 casualties and a discipline test. For the British, it's a bit -1. 8, 7, they are fine. And finally, the British will now fire at this unformed French light column coming up the hill. Wow, double 1. That'll be a fatigue casualty on themselves and 1 more casualty on the French, so no real effect. Clearly, wheeling that battery around has exhausted those gunners, and they haven't laid their guns in again. Alright, now a critical combat here. If we can break the Portuguese, we might get another fortress test on them. French get 6 attacks dice for meleeing in a land. Portuguese get 5. 4 for being unformed, but they do gain 1 for being on the top of a very steep slope. Alright, let's see how this combat goes. This is critical. Okay, so how have we done with the French? So we've got 1, 2, 3 kills for the French and none for the Allies. I think that is a breakthrough for the French. Okay, so we've got a risk to general against the brigadier. That's an 8. That'll be fine. Okay, so turn 12, and just what the British didn't want, we will have a fault test on a 2nd Portuguese brigade. Okay, so we've rolled the French initiative. They have 1 hesitant battalion. It's the light battalion that was coming around the edge of the farm. All other brigades are active. For the Allies, the KTL unfortunately are hesitant, so they've clearly joined the battle, but aren't too keen to get stuck in. The situation looks too precarious, and this part of the ridge perhaps looks lost to them. Now the critical falter test for the Portuguese. We have given them a reroll. Okay, let's see how we do. We get a 1. Gonna have to use that reroll. Another 1! The Portuguese flee off the table. The French have broken a second Allied brigade. Okay, so turn 12, this is the end of the game. I'm not going to play out the complete turn. That Fulter test was critical on the right flank. The KGL being hesitant means nothing's going to happen over there. It really all's down to the British brigade, and the only option for the French to win is to try and charge somewhat heroically this artillery battery and see whether they can cause it to break and then the British to falter. Alright, let's see what we can do. Defensive fire by the artillery battery. Okay, the battery is under artillery assault and gets an extra dice because the attacking column is... the attacking force is in column. Right, so they get an 8 and 1 more casualty. Let's see what that does. Okay, so the French have to take a discipline test at -1. They get a 6, well, it forces them to go unformed, but the charge will continue. Okay, so the French do have a battalion in support, so they will get a reroll, but this will be quite a tough charge to pull off. Let's just have a look at the modifiers. Okay, last throw for victory. It's a bit of a forlorn hope for the French. They've taken so many casualties from that defensive volley of shrapnel from their artillery that this is going to be a really tough ask. They do get a reroll, but they're on -5. Alright, well that's been impressive. They've rolled an 11 against a 7, but they have to take a -5, so that'll be 6 against 7. It's not enough to charge home. They will get an unformed volley, which does cause 1 casualty on the artillery, but they don't go into combat, and that will be it. They fail to take the artillery position and will fall back. Okay, so this one is really, really close. The French have done, I have to say, pretty outstandingly well. The battle revolves around breaking enemy brigades. Neither side has broken 3 enemy brigades. Unusually for the Allies, no French brigades are broken, and indeed the French have broken 2 Allied brigades. So 2 brigades of Portuguese gone, but the Allies still have 2 brigades intact on the ridge. So it comes down to who controls the ridge. Okay, so let's see what we got. We've got 2 KGL battalions, even though they performed atrociously. They're doing a good role for the British. They are both formed up. We have 2 on the ridge. No Portuguese. Then we look at the Allies, British battalions. All still resolutely in line. 5 casualties on that first one, none on the second. 11 casualties on this third one. That light battalion occupying those buildings really did whittle that one down. And that's it. So 6 battalions for the Allies still on the ridgeline. What about the French? We've got a bit of a debate about what the ridgeline is, but this was the position as we didn't do all of the movement for turn 12, but we clearly have at least 3, possibly arguably 5 French battalions on the ridgeline here, above the village, no opposition in their way, and starting to drive down the Allies' flank. And here we certainly have another 3 French battalions on the ridgeline. One who's just charged up there, one who's operating in support of them, and that flanking battalion that's also driven off the Portuguese. So I think we could argue we have 6, 7, 8, possibly 8 French battalions on the ridgeline to only 5 Allies. So I think we have to say the French have captured this part of Bussaco Ridge. Let's see how the rest of the battle has gone and see whether Reyniers can keep up with Reyniers' performance here. Hope you've enjoyed the game. This one was a really good one. Really close to the end. Breaking that Portuguese brigade, losing 3 battalions and getting those 3 French on the ridge really did it pretty much down to the last turn of the game. Please let us know if you enjoy the game, give us some comments, please remember to subscribe and like the videos, and look forward to seeing you for our next game.